Welcome, and thank you, Jono, to record for this for the others if they want to see it later. So I am the introducer of this session of Don't Diss My Ability. Accessibility used to be about hearing aids, accommodating wheelchairs, and screen readers, but it's much more those days, from spelling topo properly, to being forced to write with your right hand, to being unable to hear people who insist on whispering, or even minor disabilities affect confidence. Many, however, put up with them rather than speak up about them. This session is about how you can change that and how Toastmasters can help. So I have the privilege today to introduce three presenters. The first one, Carolyn Peat. So she joined Toastmaster in 2015. So why? Because she was looking for an activity in her local area to meet new people. So yeah, why not? And she enjoys the ability to be able to convey messages and speeches. And she's really enjoying having fun and participating in competitions. So it's always participating that counts for her. Toni Sharpe, our second presenter, she has been Toastmasters for 20 years. And she joined initially to be able to better formulate the speeches and presentations that she was doing at that time, so that they were going to be of more interest and more value to the audience. And she stayed because she just absolutely loves the friendships that are developed. And Toni enjoys having new members coming into the club and just watching how much and how quickly they develop their confidence. And Mike Diggins joined Toastmaster 24 years ago in 1998. You just enjoy encouraging those who are not quite sure to develop their confidence with whatever they are doing, and also with accessibility issues. But also the things that affect confidence, and they can be very small things. So Mike liked seeing the light to come on, what he was saying. Seeing someone who does an evaluation and they prove they've got actually the idea of evaluating, or throwing their prepared notes away and telling people that they have actually learned, and also actual communication that happens. And now, please welcome Carolyn, Toni, and Mike. So please mute, keep your cameras on because it's good to see you all. If you have any question, put in the chat or use the hand icon that is in the reactions icon at the bottom of the window, and enjoy the panel discussion. So now it's all yours, Mike, Toni, and Carolyn.
Thank you, Agnes. Well, I'll start, and that reaction with the hand you can also get by hitting the Alt-Y keys. And Carolyn assures me that that's used very frequently in meetings she is part of. Why am I doing this? Because it's not, this is about accessibility. It's not about disability. What is accessibility and how do we distinguish it? And why have I decided to put myself behind this as your district webmaster in the current year? Disability is something that physically or mentally can stop you doing things. But accessibility saps your confidence to do things in the first place. Personally, I don't have any recognized disabilities, but I certainly have accessibility issues. I can name 3. I'm left-handed. That can make things quite difficult at times. Even simple things like putting car keys on key rings. That's a right-handed task. You only realize that when it takes you 10 minutes to do it and it takes someone else 10 seconds. My hearing is not what it was, hasn't been for a long time. And for that, I tend to not join in with conversations maybe where I should do. As a good example, I've ceased to hear people who whisper at me, even if I've got my ears in. That can be embarrassing unless I speak up about it at the start. And secondly, I'm not getting any younger. None of us are. And those changes reduce your ability to do things. I can't run a marathon like I used to be able to, although I could never actually run a marathon. And it's those accessibility issues, access to things that you used to have, that take away your confidence. What started me on this, a few years ago, I went on a course about accessibility. I was then working for Auckland Council, and the idea was that anybody in Auckland Council's IT area who had anything to do with websites needed to know this stuff, because it was coming in, and it's coming in now with all sorts of accessibility groups, and of course the Minister for Disabilities. So I went on this course. The tutor walked in, sat behind his desk, introduced himself, asked us to introduce ourselves, which we did, and then said something I'll never forget. Please, 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 I know you're used to raising your hands to ask a question, but don't do it here because I can't see you. And that was the first time we realized we had a tutor who was completely blind, and it didn't make any difference. That is where Toastmasters can come in to help us make sure that anyone who is in that vein for any reason, it doesn't make a difference as far as what we do and as far as what they can then go on to achieve. I'll ask Toni and Carolyn to talk to that. But I learned something else from that course, and I learned it was about websites. Nothing technical, you don't need to turn off or anything. It's very simple. If a website is confusing to a blind or low vision person through their screen reader, it's also confusing to someone who is not blind. So by improving the accessibility for people with any form of challenges there, we improve it for all, and that's what we all want. Toni, I'd like you to come in now.
Okay, unless Carolyn would like to have a chat first. With us, Carolyn?
Okay, you can go, Toni, and I'll follow after you.
Oh, good. Sweet. Thank you. All righty, everybody. It's fantastic to be here this morning and to see some names that I know. When I say see, I hear the names as they come into the room, and to be able to share some of our thoughts and to be able to have the ability for you as our members and those who may potentially feel that you have accessibility challenges to be able to fully understand that you're not in this boat alone. We have many members in our clubs that do have accessibility challenges. Now, these things can actually range from having English as a second language. If we have, some people have specific religious type affiliations that may prevent them from doing things in a set way. For instance, when they're being welcomed to the stage to present, they may not be in a position to shake hands. COVID's actually taught us a lot about different ways of meeting, greeting people, and to be able to appropriately acknowledge people when they come to the stage. People may have challenges with technology. Now, that is an accessibility challenge, because it could be something that is perhaps age-related, or it could be something that is due to people just being technophobes. And once upon a time, I considered myself a technophobe, and I can thank our friend Mr. Mike Diggins for helping me along the road and being able to overcome that. So obviously there are physical challenges. We could have people with deafness, people like myself and Carolyn that are blind, people that have other obvious disabilities, or people that may have even just selective hearing. Breathing can be another accessibility challenge. And I know in my home club of Taupo, going back a couple of years ago, I became a mentor to a lady who's now an amazing friend, who absolutely froze when she got up on the stage. And I suggested to her that when she gets up there, the power of her nerves actually overrode her system, and her natural ability to breathe actually shut down. So she wasn't able to function. So we had several sessions where I worked with her to say, hey, look, let's breathe. And when she went to meetings to present a speech, she would get up there and she would take good deep breaths. In some cases, though, she took a little too many because it put her into a little bit of a hyperventilative state. However, she managed through. She gained her confidence, and for her, knowing about the breathing and the ability to breathe and focusing on breathing was a huge, huge advantage. Yep, people, as Mike said earlier, that are left-handed, that creates challenges. We're people with dyslexia, people that may have other unseen challenges as well, maybe autism or Asperger's, something along that line. We're here to help those people. And once Carolyn's had a chat, we'd like to actually open up the floor to people to talk about their ways of, or the challenges that they have that we may not have covered off in our list. And then we'll move into how do we overcome these challenges in order to be able to make our clubs more successful, make our clubs more supportive, and to be able to do the best we can for each and every member and whatever their specific needs may be. Carolyn.
Thank you. When I joined Toastmasters, some people wondered why the heck somebody who hated doing speeches decided to join Toastmasters. My hatred of delivering speeches went back to my school days. When I was a child, I was vision impaired. I lost my eyesight later in life. But I was not able to have notes in the same way as my classmates had notes, because I used magnification to read. So if I had notes, my notes would be up on my nose, on my face. So one, you wouldn't hear me, and two, you wouldn't see my face when I was speaking. So if I could avoid doing a speech at school, I would avoid doing it. When I came to Toastmasters, it was a revelation because it taught me how to deliver a speech without notes. While I had Braille now, it still made me feel, wow, I'd overcome that obstacle. So that was one of the barriers in my life that I'd had, was being able to do public speaking, but I need notes. Oh, I can actually do it without notes now. Toni talked about mentoring. I've never been officially assigned as a mentor, but we are all mentors in a way. The conversations that you have with club members and with the new members in particular can influence what they take on board and how they do things. So remember that when you're talking to somebody about their progression and what they're doing, that you give wisdom and good advice and good assistance to that individual. We are all mentoring each other, and it's valuable. So while there may be accessibility issues, the mentoring, and also people, please don't be afraid to admit that you've got something, a barrier that's preventing you from progressing. Talk to someone about it, because that's part way to resolving the problem.
Thank you, Carolyn. Yes, as we said earlier, it's now your turn. Let's see. I suspect Jonathan's got something to say in this area because he's a member of, as am I, a member of Silver Service, and sometimes we meet upstairs. Well, that can be a challenge, but Jonathan, I don't think we've dropped you yet.
We've had some close calls, but no, I think we're good. But no, you're absolutely right there, Mike. And I think just taking the upstairs example that you've given, one of the things important, not only are the stairs the issue, is that is the person comfortable being transported upstairs? I think, because I'm good with it, but I know other people are less comfortable with it, and so I think it's important that people check with them and so that they can know whether how best to handle it. And I think also because of that, we're going with this. It's important to try and avoid those barriers if at all possible, because if the person's not comfortable being lifted, then that further exacerbates the accessibility issues there.
Thank you, Jonathan. I know I'll come to Murray in a second, but Jonathan's raised something that's absolutely fundamental to this workshop. And that is that what we weren't doing was checking with them whether they were comfortable and how they wanted to handle it. That applies to anything, absolutely anything. The key point is that the person who needs that little bit of extra assistance, shall we say, defines how that extra assistance works. Murray, over to you. And you're on mute, sir.
Right. Firstly, I need to acknowledge Toni and Mike. We have, in our district procedures, we have a section on disability. Toni wrote the original one, and then Mike realized it didn't cover IT and added material in that area. So as a district, we have very good, well, I claim to have that we have very good accessibility policies. What I want to talk about is the other side of accessibility, and that is in the whole area of health and safety. One thing I noticed at a conference some years ago was that if we had to evacuate the conference, we were going to have a problem. We had several people in wheelchairs who were nowhere near an exit, and it was actually it was a theatre style stepped one. Equally, a situation I asked one of the staff there, what do we do with people who are vision impaired? And the response was, oh, we do them last. So really, for all our things, every event we have anywhere in Toastmasters, we also have to be very, very aware of health and safety. And if anything, if we have to evacuate or anything else, that everybody has an equal accessibility, I suppose. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Murray. That was brought home to me in February in a completely different environment, a motorhome rally. We have, because of health and safety, we have to make sure that if anything goes wrong on the rally, we can get 30 camper vans out the gate in a couple of minutes, and we have to arrange parking so as that can happen. So health and safety, which came in 2016, has impacted almost everywhere in what we do, and it's changed what we do, and we're not that good at change. Now, I'm going to bring in Elizabeth here because she's been firing some chat items at me for people who've put their hands up, but I'd like her to manage this piece of the session. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Mike. I'm just looking at people in the audience, and for instance, Philip Turner is here. He's the MD of the Accessibility Tick. Rose with the club for aphasia, and then Isabel, who just had an operation on her ankles, and Janice, who's also allergic to smells. All those things affect how we treat people in our clubs and where we gather. So maybe they would like to speak up about that.
All right, Elizabeth, if nobody else jumps in, I'll jump in. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. The deeper you start to look and the more you get into disability and neurodiversity as well, whether you count that as a disability or not, there's arguments both ways, but how prevalent that is in society. And the more you realize, actually, I have some access needs as well. Through my own journey, I've discovered that I have aphantasia, which means I don't visualize. So when somebody actually talks to me and says, visualize this, I see black. If I close my eyes and I get asked to do things like that. And so that changes the way that I communicate, that changes the way that I hear and interpret what's being said. And so that's one of many things. I also have had a corneal transplant. I've also had 3 prolapsed discs in my back. And so each of those has impacted the way that I interact, and certainly would change the way that I engage in a Toastmasters meeting. But it's so interesting, and I would encourage Toastmasters in general. We've heard about the health and safety, we've heard about some things, but in regards to an event, I've got a checklist here. It's about choosing the right venue. It's about thinking about, are your invitations accessible, and are they going to work for everyone and their individual print needs or disability needs, or what's going on there. Thinking about your marketing and comms, same thing. Thinking about your wayfinding when you get to the venue, how people are going to find their way around if their needs are different. Thinking about the room arrangement. If you've got a tea and coffee, is it low enough for somebody in a wheelchair to be able to access, so that they don't have to ask for assistance, so they can be independent? Thinking about audio visuals, presentations, catering, and of course, as was mentioned before, emergency planning. So there are some sheets that can be forwarded out. There's a lot of information. You just need to spark people's interest in it and get them actually thinking about it, and you'll see a huge move forwards.
Thank you, Philip. Yes, I think one of the major challenges we are going to have is that we have too much information to be able to act reasonably on all the possibilities. So there may be, we may have, certainly on the managing the website, I know there are going to be some prioritizations, but I think we should have a chat. Now, Rose, you've got your hand up.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. And I'd just like to start with the fact that a number of years ago, I was in an accident and I had concussion, which affected me quite dramatically and changed a lot of the way I view things and the way I live now. I now co-facilitate a club with people with aphasia, and I can relate to them because in a small way, I've been through what they go through every single day of their lives. And that is having in your head what you want to say, but it doesn't come out quite the way you mean it to. And sometimes something quite horrific comes out and you feel embarrassed. And we need to be able to let people say what they need to say without interrupting, because it's so easy to hear half a sentence and finish it for them. That is the most frustrating thing for anybody with aphasia, is having their sentences finished. Prompt, yes. Ask questions. Is it this? Is it that? But please don't finish the sentence. Then to bring up those invitations, for example, I have a Facebook page for our group, but I have to bear in mind the people with aphasia, or depending on the degree of aphasia, where the injury is, it all differs. It's very, very broad, but they're not the ones that are reading the invitations. It's the people that are helping them when they first come round. I've got one friend, she came round and within a week, her friend had taken her embroidery to her in the hospital and insisted that she did her embroidery. She now, although she cannot speak very well and her memory is not all that good, she still embroiders to the degree that she did in the past. So we've got to think of helping them in different ways. But most of all, please, when you're speaking, when you're helping, as you say, ask them if they are comfortable and let them finish. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Rose. Yes, I was helped out with an aphasia group attached to Auckland University a few years ago, and they measured over time, because they were worried about continuing funding, they measured the effect of the Toastmasters program on people with aphasia, and they concluded that Toastmasters sped up recovery where recovery was possible by about 20%. By encouraging people to speak up. And they did that very, very simply. As Rose says, everybody has words sometimes that they can't recall. And what they did was 2 gestures. That one, no, I'll find it, give me a chance, and I want suggestions. And everybody bought into that because it helped them and it helped the group get over exactly what Rose is saying, because there's nothing more frustrating. Isabel, you have your hand up at the moment.
One of the things that I have found to be really frustrating is the things that you can't see. Yes, I've had an operation on my leg, but Toastmasters has given me the will to keep going and not sit there with a pair of crutches down beside me because I'm non-weight bearing. Toastmasters has given me that degree to the point that 3 days after surgery, here I am, and Elizabeth can probably attest to this. I was in the middle of a Toastmasters meeting and Janice, my friend, got frustrated with me. That kept me going for 6 to 8 weeks. The other one that I'm finding really frustrating is that people do not see the hidden ones. I may be affluent in speaking very clearly, but I sometimes don't hear what people are saying as they say it, because I also have Asperger's. And some people educate, administration and things like that is a strong point. People who have a visual impairment, they look at that as quite easily and can acknowledge it. What about the ones that aren't hidden, that are hidden? Janice, I know what Janice is like. We work well together, but Janice has a hospitality talent. 2 of our clubs went to her house so she could join Toastmasters. And now we are hybrid, and those 2 clubs are still in existence because we went to a house, because Janice wanted to learn. My Asperger's has given me the strength to do many roles that I couldn't do. So discounting what you can see, I can walk, I can run, well, normally, but those are the hidden ones that you don't hide. It's, yeah, Janice.
Tell them about being acknowledging and stopping using inhalers.
The other thing is too, Janice has raised an issue. When Janice has acknowledged that even though we're in a meeting, Janice may be doing a role or something like that, but people, if they're doing a role, if they need to tend to their need, if you're an asthmatic, and if that asthmatic goes like that for an inhaler, just carrying on with the meeting, it gives them a sense of normality as well. There's been many a time Janice has walked out the room, I just looked, she's gone, I'm okay, and then she's come back in as though she's never had a problem. It's valuable. Take them for what they can do, what you think they can do, let them try. And as you say there, stop, I've got it, or I'll come back. That's valuable. But don't discount the stuff you can't see. You can't see intellectual. And I've had people with intellectual disability come through club and do well. So don't count what you can't see either. Give them what they can do and then encourage them to do more. You'll get more members with disabilities that way if you treat them like they are, as I say, normal. But what's normal? Your normal is not my normal in any way. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Isabel. Yes, I'm still trying to work out what a normal Toastmasters meeting looks like. I don't think I've ever been to one. But yeah, Isabel's absolutely right. And that's the key reason that Toni, Carolyn and I felt that this workshop was a good idea and needed. Now we've got some great cues coming up. I need to go and cough a little bit, so I'm going to ask either Toni or Carolyn to take over for those that have got their hands raised.
Yeah. All right. So are there any more hands up at the moment? I can't see.
BJ's got his hand up first.
Okay, BJ, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mike. Before Mike goes and has a cough, I've got a sore throat too. And I remember Mike said to me one day, don't judge a book by its cover. We've all got an ability to do something. But my biggest thing is I'm dyslexic. And I struggled to read and spell at school. Now the biggest problem is trying to understand the words and reading them. I got help from all my teachers. I went into a martial art of judo. I loved it. But trying to understand the judo, the Japanese words, I struggled with them to understand the senseis and their words and understand the throws and what it meant because I couldn't understand it. This is where I struggled from. And over the years, I've got better and better. I even now to the point where I don't care, how do you spell this or how do you do that? I ask because it's helping me. The most important thing is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
And my dear mentor Murray said to me one day, he's always here for me, which I love. The other thing I like is I found with dyslexic, we've got an ability that we don't see straight. We see outside, then find something. A dear friend of mine said, can you help me move a piano? I said, yeah, not a problem. He said, what do you mean? In my mind, I've already got it organized how to move it. He said, how we've been trying to think for 3 days, how we're going to do it. And you've just organized it in that quick time. So that's my ability that I've got over some other people. And then with my judo, I found I got very good at it because even though I didn't understand the words, I understood the throws and the techniques they showed me physically. And I took that in. Thank you, Toni. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much, BJ. And you're right. The ability to ask for help is an incredibly powerful tool. Never be ashamed to ask for help. And for those, as has already been alluded to, is don't finish sentences for people and don't assume anything. If we as Toastmasters are unsure of what the needs of our members are, and a lot of them can be very specific, we need to make sure that we're not making the assumption of what it is that they need. Let us ask. And the fact is, by us asking, then that actually opens up a door 2 ways in order for those members to feel comfortable about coming to us or their mentors when they have questions or when they feel they need support within that whole club environment, and even outside of the club from time to time. Now, I thought it might be quite nice for us to share a couple of examples of things that are access type needs that have turned out to be quite humorous in particular. And for me, for those that know me, I'm sort of world famous for saying when PowerPoints and things like that go wrong, it's not a problem because it's just visual crap. And we don't need it. Well, when we say we, I say I don't need that visual crap. However, there are others aesthetically that require it and rely on it in order for the messages to come through to them clearly and concisely. But I have a problem if we're in a face-to-face scenario. So if we were here in Taupo, where I'm based, at the conference, as it was meant to be face-to-face, sitting in the audience, I might be looking in the direction where I think the presenter is on the stage. However, what I'm doing could be looking completely askew because where the voice is coming from, as in the speaker that is amplifying the voice, that's where I'm looking. And for people from the outside looking in and viewing that, they probably think it's just a little bit nutty, or perhaps I'm not focused, I'm not concentrating, something along that line. And it's something that I like to laugh about things like that. I know I'm doing it, but when I don't know where the speaker is on the stage, how do I know where to look?
I can share a similar one, Toni. When I did my icebreaker speech for Toastmasters, I entitled it Dancing Eyes. The reason being is I suffer from nystagmus. That means I don't necessarily have control over the muscle movement of my eyes. So I could be looking directly at the audience, but my eyes could be over to the left, to the right, up or down, or even sometimes doing circles. And so I was explaining that to people, that I've been accused of not looking at people when I'm having conversations, because eye contact is considered so strong in our society. But the fact is, I am looking at them, but I just can't control what my eyes do.
Okay, Carolyn, I remember a member, Carolyn and I share a club, and a member at the same club a few years ago, I think Carolyn's still in touch. She had Tourette's, not particularly severe Tourette's, but tics.
Yes.
And her objective was to try and incorporate, and the evaluation helped her with that, I believe, try and incorporate those tics into her gestures so they weren't so obvious. And that hopefully it worked for her. In some ways it appeared to, but of course you always get out of control from time to time. We've got a couple of hands up now. Murray?
Yeah. One of the things that, yes, I'm mute. I'm not on mute. We talked, John talked a little bit about dyslexia. Now, and a lot of people think that that's one affliction. And the reality is, the more we learn about it, the more multifaceted it is. And I'll share something with you. I have a form of dyslexia called dysgraphia. I have no trouble getting information in. I have a lot of trouble getting it out in written form. For example, to a level, I would invariably, what we don't see with people is the internal frustration which is going on when you want to do something and something in you is blocking it. For example, at university, I would be trying to write an answer and it just wouldn't come out, and I'd get so frustrated and I'd actually walk out of the exam. I didn't start passing things at university until they allowed me to use a laptop. Those types of things. Some of the things where we're blockage, we can find ways to overcome. Some we can't. But a lot of the blockages and the frustrations are internal, and the other people in the audience at a club meeting or whatever don't actually notice what's going on. You're just stopped or whatever. We are as an organisation, we are very, very supportive. But I think we can do a lot more work as individuals to actually support other people. It's just like, okay, I'll use an example. If I'm doing an evaluation at a face-to-face meeting, I have trouble filling out the evaluation form. It takes me quite a long time. If it's an online one, I've filled out the evaluation, I've done the evaluation form online, and I've emailed it to the person before the meeting's over. Those types of things, and it's really within our clubs, getting to know our fellow members to a higher level. So we actually have a lot more tolerance with them. And it's an ongoing thing. And it is a really difficult situation for members who visit other clubs, especially as a district officer or things like that, because they might be, oh, somebody hasn't shown up, can you evaluate this speech? They don't know the barriers the speaker has got. And if they address it wrong, like I can give an example of an area director who actually really gave a tough evaluation of somebody. They were visiting the club for the first time. They didn't know the person's barriers. And that particular club eventually told the district director, we never want to see that area director again. So it's, as I'm saying, it's some of the stuff's hidden, and the internal frustrations are very, very real. Back to you.
Thank you, Mary. That is a really great example of why speaker and evaluator need to talk before the speaker speaks.
Sometimes it can fall over even if you do. I had an evaluation not so long ago where the evaluator asked me what sort of things should they be looking for. And I told them not to worry so much about the eye contact with me for obvious reasons. When they did the evaluation, the spoken evaluation, they then proceeded to say that I needed to improve some aspects of my body language and give an example of what I should do, but they didn't describe the example. So I had no idea of what that individual was talking about.
Basic evaluation just shows we're all learning all of the time. And it comes under one of what we've been talking about is one of our 4 key values: respect for the individual. And we with that we can help that person search for their version of excellence. Jonathan, you have something to say.
Just following on from many of the comments this morning, Toni and others that are saying, don't assume. I think one of the most powerful statements I believe is to use in this context is, how can we help? And what can we do to help? And don't, as others have said, don't assume you know how to help. Just to give you an example, not a Toastmasters one, but when I get an Uber, for example, I'll get in the car, and of course I know how my chair works. And I'll say, I just turn it around, or just turn it around so I can put the back down. Uber driver will be like, I know, and it's like, no, you don't know. It's just listen for 5 minutes, and it'll be so much simpler. And actually, you could actually avoid potentially doing some damage if you just listen, rather than assuming that you know how it works when you don't. So yeah, it's that listening, and just that simple question: how can we help? And being prepared to listen.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, that brings me back to something that I believe Toni said earlier about religious differences. one of the first Islamic ladies that I met and got to know reasonably well, was a new member of a club, and Islam, of course, has bars on touching a man who's not a husband, which made handshaking very difficult. And she said that. And okay, how would you like to be introduced? I asked, and would you like to do a speech about it? And so it strikes me that this is a way through with Toastmasters. If you need to talk about that, and you've got 5 to 7 minutes, as Jonathan said, you only need 5, then perhaps that is a good way of bringing these things out. We've heard it with depression. Why not with issues like this? I'd like to turn to Philip. We have only 15 minutes left, so I'd like to think to encourage those who haven't spoken yet to put their hands up, because everybody's entitled to their 10 cents. Philip.
Now I'll do it without mute. Kia ora again, everyone. Phil Turner, West Harbour Toastmasters. And I'm saying that because I'm trying to get into the practice for Carolyn to make sure that she knows who's speaking at the time. But one of the things I think we need to be very careful about when we're talking about disability is to make sure that we don't get into a deficit conversation and always seeing them as negatives, always seeing them as detractive, something that we need to help people work through, work around, fix. Sometimes it's them, and there's actually a strength and a resilience that quite often comes with that and their experience and their life experience. And Carolyn, I hope you don't mind, you raised in your one that you joined Toastmasters in 2015. So you're a Toastmaster of 7 years, but you've never been a mentor. And I was curious about that. And I looked, and that really sparked an alarm with me, sitting there going, somebody who's been a Toastmaster for 7 years, has grown a lot of knowledge and a lot of things, will undoubtedly have something to do. Now, it might be personal choice, it might be other reasons.
I've never been asked to do it.
And so I think that's partly it. As a club, as the program, as the education, VP education, you could have encouraged some people towards Carolyn and actually had a strength-based, she's got lots of experience, and she'll actually tell you how to interact with another part of society and educate you on another part of society, or support you to understand how to interact with other people. So I think my thing is, and what I wanted to raise, Mike, was it is a strength-based conversation. And if we start flipping our mindsets to saying these people are bringing their lived experience, their strengths to the organization, they've got their own things that they want to work on, and that's their personal journey, but it's not our place to try and fix them. It's our place to support them on their journey, whatever that is, but also to recognize they are a person. They are a person with great lived experience of all aspects of life, their disability, but every other aspect of life as well. And as such, they should be treated as highly valued contributing club members.
So if I can just follow that very quickly, it comes back to knowing the people in your club. The danger is assuming that a club, say a VP Ed, assuming that a club member can't do this and is too embarrassed to ask them. The thing is, for most of us, if we've got a blockage in some area, we've been Toastmasters long enough with the confidence to say, that doesn't work for me, or whatever. But the thing is, too many people miss out on opportunities because people make assumptions about what they can do and what they can't do. And that is quite damaging.
Thank you, Murray. I'd like to just highlight even further the absolute value and how essential mentoring is to each and every one of us, no matter what level we're at, no matter what level of experience we have, whether we've been in Toastmasters for 24, 25 years, some people even longer, or whether we're just brand new. The value of mentoring is powerful. It's something that helps people develop their confidence in a secure and a safe environment. Now, in my home club, which is Taupō, we have a dedicated mentor signee within our membership who's not a club officer, who has created a complete resource of files, snippets and articles taken from Toastmaster magazines. He has a full resource of all of the past manuals, and he actively, as well as assigning mentees and mentors, once a new member has joined, he actively contacts those mentors following evaluations and follows up on recommendations and supplies the mentors with the tools and the resources to be able to encourage the mentees to improve on the recommendations that have been made. I mean, we're very lucky in that we've got this person who has the time to be able to do this and is so persistent with the way he manages the task, that we need to try and share that resource. We need to try and encourage other clubs to take that on board as well. Now, one of the key things I like to do when a new member comes into the club, or a more experienced member, is I like to say, hey, look around at the club members. Who inspires you? Who motivates you? Who do you think may have the ability to be able to help you on your personal journey, and to be able to assist you in accessing and developing further as a communicator and as a leader? And I encourage members also to take a look at the mentor or at the membership list when it's circulated and say, look, if you feel that your assigned mentor is not able to help you in this, in any or a specific situation, take the time to look through the member list and contact the person who you think might best be able to offer you that support and guidance. Allow these people the flexibility and the opportunity to be able to reach out to members at any level in order that they can maintain and move forward on their personal journeys. And at the same time, each of us grows. We're supporting people, we're making people feel comfortable, and at the end of the day, it's a win-win all around.
And it's also, if you have an access issue, discuss it with your mentor. I had a particular situation. Many of you will remember the old legacy program and speech number 5, which is the body language speech. I didn't feel that I could confidently evaluate someone doing that speech with the body language component of it. But I didn't want to throw it back and say, I can't do this evaluation, because I decided to turn to my mentor and say, look, this is going to be problematic for me. Is it possible for me to do a dual evaluation? Buddy up with someone else in the club. They'll evaluate the body language components of the speech, and I'll do the other components of the speech. And he looked at me and he said, it's never been done before. It's not against the rules, but why not? So that's what I did. And so Mangakiki Club had its first dual evaluation done several years ago for a body language speech, and it worked beautifully.
And that's how we change things, isn't it, Elizabeth?
Sorry, I thought that silent meant a cue. There are things that we don't always realize, and sometimes it helps to have a mentor like Toni. I've learned so much during this year. For instance, when we have Zoom meetings and we talk in the chat, she hears it and she can't hear what the person who's speaking is saying. So it's not, when you have someone like that in your group, then don't talk in the chat. Or when you have visuals, when you have a newsletter. Sometimes we have beautiful statistics, but Toni can't read that. And you know what? She's our proofreader. She proofreads our newsletter because she picks up too many or more mistakes than anyone else would pick up. But often she would pick up a spelling mistake and I can't find it. And then I realize it's in the alt text that I've made the spelling mistake. So many things to learn when you have a mentor. who can teach you how to do things in such a way that it won't bother anyone else. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Also, thank you for bringing up in the video that second languages are a form of accessibility, and they all require their own solutions. We're into our last 5 minutes, so I'm going to leave the last comment to Rose, and then we'll just have a summary between the three presenters. Rose, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, I'd just like to pick up on Toni speaking about mentors. We all need mentors. I'm in my 25th year at Toastmasters. I am still learning, and I'm learning from others. At the moment, I am part of a club in formation, Northern Impromptu, and I thought, I've started clubs. I know what I'm doing, but I don't. So I've got a mentor there to help me as well. Then the other thing I was thinking is perhaps in our formalities at the beginning of meetings, we could have prompts. For example, if we have somebody that's blind in our meeting and there is a online aspect of it, just say, please don't use the chat, and this is the reason. So those are just my thoughts that I've picked up in the last 5 minutes. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. And yes, the chat can be fun, can't it, Toni? Because it's really
Yes.
pick it up when you don't want it to, as we found. We also found that in Run the Red when we borrowed Toni's machine as a camera. Yes, we nearly lost that because the screen reader got in the way. But you live and learn with these things. But the whole thing, that's why I think these sessions are so valuable, and I hope people spread that around and encourage others to watch the recordings of these, because they're relevant to our integrity, the way in which Toastmasters works. They're relevant to excellence. They're relevant to service. We're all supposed to provide services for each other, and they're relevant to respect, because we shouldn't be assuming things, but we also don't know what we don't know. So it's everybody's responsibility to teach everybody else and be encouraged to do so, because Toastmasters, after all, is a safe place to make mistakes. I'm going to move to Toni and leave the last word to Carolyn.
Thank you very much, Mike. And I'm just going to reiterate to people, mentoring is key, both to mentors and mentees. Key points, key takeaways: don't assume anything, always ask. And allow those with access needs in your club to feel comfortable. Allow them to be able to expand their horizons by being themselves and being comfortable with being themselves, because that's what Toastmasters is all about. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Carolyn.
Thanks. I'm going to expand a little bit on the allowing to be comfortable. When I started to participate in competitions, I didn't take it for granted that people, when I got to area and when I got to division, that people would know what the rules were as far as Toastmasters goes about what I was allowed to have and not allowed to have, as far as indication for timing, etc. So I sent information through to the organisers for the competitions and explained that, one, I would need to have a walkthrough of the speaking area and what the regulations were about timing and where they could find that information on the Toastmasters website. I didn't initially get a very good response, which really disappointed me, and I had to get someone to do some table thumping to get a better reaction. So my plea is, please, if someone does come and lets you know of that access need, and it's not unreasonable and it's within the guidelines of Toastmasters, look, don't flip out about it. Go, oh, heck. Actually look into it, because what that individual is doing is giving you the time to sort it out so that on the day things run as smooth as possible for whoever has the access need. So yeah, don't be afraid to communicate. This is what this organization's about. And if we communicate with each other both ways, it's going to work well.
Thank you, Carolyn. And yes, it's
Thank
all about abilities. It's what you can do, not what you can't do. That's what Toastmasters is all about. And that is about all we have time for. So I'm going to hand back to Agnes to close the session. Over to you, Agnes.
Thank you, everyone. It was an amazing, really, really good workshop. And I hope tomorrow will be also really good. Thank you very much, everyone, to be here today. Really good discussion, and looking forward to see you all also maybe tomorrow. And at the end of the session. And now if you want to leave the room and to go back to the main room, you just click on the blue on the bottom
button.
right.
Alt Q on the computer and it'll bring up some options.
Yes, thank you. Or I can assign you to the main room.
What was that about mentors, Carolyn? Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.